Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bhad Paramahansa Padurikacharya Ashtoto Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And Jai Om Vishnu Bhad Paramahansa Padurikacharya Ashtoto Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hari Bol.
Prabhu, I noticed you started at 7:14 today.
I'm sorry?
I noticed that you started Jaya Madhav song at 7:14 today.
You think we were on text 14? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that you started the class at 7:14.
Oh my God. Should I sing it again?
No, it's fine.
Okay. I'll try to be more precise next time. Sorry.
Yeah, 7:50 next week. Our schedule will start, regular schedule.
All right. Sorry. The question is, are we on text 14 or text 15? I'm pretty sure it's 15.
Yes, Prabhu, it is 15.
It is 15. Thank you for keeping track. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this first day of March 2021 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 8 entitled Attaining the Supreme. We're on page 359 of most books, text 15. Mam upetya punarjanma dukkalayam ashashvatam naptavanti mahatmanah samsiddhim padamam gatah mamupet punarjanma dukkalayam ashashvatam naptavanti mahatmanah samsiddhim padamam gatah Mamupeti punarjanma dukkaliham shashvatam naptubandi mahatmana samsiddhim padamangataha. Go ahead. Mamupeti punarjanma dukkaliham shashvatam Napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim padamam gataha. Mamupeti punarjanma dukkalayam shashvatam napnavanti mahatmanah Samsiddhim paramangataha. Want to try it, Mike? Okay. All right. Mam, me. Upecha, achieving. Punaha, again. Janma, birth. Dukkha alayam, place of miseries. Ashasvatam, temporary. Na, never. Apnuvanti, attain. Maha atmanaha, the great souls. Samsiddhim, perfection. Paramam, ultimate. Gataha, having achieved. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Purport. Since this temporary material world is full of the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death, naturally he who achieves the highest perfection and attains the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan, does not wish to return. The supreme planet is described in Vedic literature as Avyakta and Akshara and Paramagati. In other words, that planet is beyond our material vision, and it is inexplicable, but it is the highest goal, the destination for the Mahatmas, or great souls. The Mahatmas receive transcendental messages from the realized devotees, and thus gradually develop devotional service in Krishna consciousness, and become so absorbed in transcendental service that they no longer desire elevation to any of the material planets, nor do they even want to be transferred to any spiritual planet. They want only Krishna and Krishna's association and nothing else. That is the highest perfection of life. This verse specifically mentions the personalist devotees of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. These devotees in Krishna consciousness achieve the highest perfection of life. In other words, they are the supreme souls. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So it's interesting that in previous verses, starting in text 9, Krishna is he's describing the Supreme Person. He's describing Kavin Purana Manushasitaram. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person. But that's him. Why didn't he just say him? But this is, it's kind of, he goes back and forth sometimes, the third person, first person. This is kind of a, I don't know when to say, official, description. It's describing his glories, and the one who knows everything. He is the oldest, who is the controller, smaller than the smallest, maintainer of everything, beyond all material conception, inconceivable, always a person. He's luminous like the sun. He's transcendental beyond this material nature. And then, interestingly enough, he talks a little bit. It's like a throwback to the 6th chapter. He's talking about sitting in meditation, putting the attention between the eyebrows. The text 10. He who at the time of death fixes his life between the eyebrows by the strength of yoga, undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion. Again, third person. And then more of this kind of language. The person learned in the Vedas, he utters Omkar, great sages, renounced daughter, and enter into Brahman. Enter into Brahman. Doing such perfection, one practices celibacy. It goes on like that. And then he continues describing this meditative process and uttering Om, which is Krishna ultimately. But it's not. He doesn't mention himself here. But now, finally, in text 14, the previous verse, he gives a different view. It's not the official meditation, back to the difficulty uttering Om. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I'm easy to obtain, O son of Pita, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. He literally uses the sulabha. Sulabha means very easy. So now he's talking about bhakti, real bhakti. In other words, if one can cultivate that devotion to Krishna so that you're attracted to him. Remember the beginning of the 7th chapter. He said, Maya sakta manaparta. Now I'm going to tell you how mind can naturally be attracted. The whole thing keys on the mind. In the 6th chapter, he directly said the mind's the best friend and your worst enemy. The uncontrolled mind is your worst enemy. Mind fixed on the Supreme is your best friend. But how to get that mind fixed on Krishna? That's the trick. So now Ananya Chetak Satatam Yoma Smarati Nijasa. Now he says mom again. Now he's back to thinking of me. In other words, for us and for Arjuna, he already loves Krishna. He's already always thinking of Krishna. So he's already the best yogi. We learn that at the end of the 6th chapter. But we're not in Arjuna's position. We have to cultivate this remembrance. And that's really the essence of Bhakti Yoga. All of this that we do. Remember, there's a very nice verse that Smartavyak Satatam Vishno Vismartavyo Najatu Chit Sava Vidi Nishedaksyo Eteyor Eva Kinkara. So what Smartavyak means is remembrance. Satatam, always remembering Vishnu or Krishna. And Vismartavyo Najat, and never at any time forgetting him. All the other rules and regulations of bhakti are servants of these two. The deity worship, the chanting certainly, the study of Bhagavad Gita, cultivating the mode of goodness, which is after all a material thing, but it works nicely as a platform upon which to cultivate bhakti and cultivate that remembrance. So it's all trying to bring us to this point of constantly remembering Krishna. Some of you are familiar with this Krishna Katashtaka. I don't think you heard. This is something I discovered in the 12th Canto some years ago. It happens to be 8 verses, and it's all about the glories of hearing and chanting Krishna's words about Krishna. Sutta Goswami is just wrapping up his instructions or his recounting of the Bhagavatam to the sages at Naimisharanya, 12th canto. It's almost the end of the whole thing. 12th canto, 12th chapter. There's only 13 chapters. So he starts out this Krishna Katashtaka with the word Sankirtan, which is very indicative. Sankirtamano Bhagavan Ananta Shrutana Bhavo Vasanan Nipungsam Pravishya Chittam Vidunoti Shesham Yatat Tamoko Brahmivati Vata. So those who glorify and hear and chant Krishna's glories with other devotees, Sankirtamana, Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, and are dedicated to this hearing process, Shrutana Bhavo, then Krishna, he enters into their heart. Now he's already there, but he manifests. And he completely eradicates all the sufferings due to previous sinful activities. That's all the abhadras, all the anartas, right? Just like the rising sun dissipates all the darkness, or a very powerful wind dissipates the fog. On the other hand, and this whole Krishna Katasha goes back and forth like this. On the other hand, Vishagadasta Asatira Satkata Nakatade Had Bhagavan and Hokshaja. Those words that don't glorify Krishna at Hokshaja, the transcendental Lord, they're false, they're useless, they're harmful, like that. Tadeva, then they have 6 lines that describe the glories of hearing and chanting, like it's the topmost in the whole Bhagavatam practically. Tadeva Satyam, Tadohaiva Mangalam, Tadeva Punyam, Bhagavad Gunodiyam, Tadeva Ramyam, Ruchidam, Navang Navang, Tadeva Shashang Manaso Mahotsavam, Tadeva Shokarna Vishoshanang Nanan, Yadutta Vishloka Yashonugiyate. So those words that do glorify the Lord, it says they're true. That's where the truth lies. Tadeva Satyam. Tadohaiva Mangalam, very auspicious. Tadeva Punyam, they bring piety. They automatically give you piety. Bhagavan Gunodiyam. And Tadeva Ramyam, they're very delightful. Ruchiram, tasty. Navang Navang, ever fresh. There's several places in the Bhagavatam that says you never get satiated with the Krishna Katha. You might physically, say, well, I got to take rest, But you're not saying, well, that's boring enough. Let's talk about something else. If you really have the taste, you want to eat more and more and more. What happened to the time? Is it Mangalarti time already? So, Navam Navam, Ruchirang Navam Navam, Tadeva Shashvan Manaso Mahotsavam. Now, Alex is going to take this apart because he's been studying Sanskrit. Tadeva Shoka, you know what Shoka means? Anyone out there? Okay. You know.
Yeah, it's dukkha, like
Shoka is lamentation.
Lamentation.
It's a species of dukkha, so you're in the right ballpark. So Shoka Arnava, the ocean of lamentation, which is what this material world is, it dries it up. Shoshanava is to dries it up. In other words, no more lamentation. Just like it says in the Tadeva Navyam Ruchidang Navangdavang Tadeva Shashvan Manaso Mahotsavam. That's it, Shashvan Manaso Mahotsavam. Manasa, Maha Utsava, a great festival for the mind. Yeah, an eternal festival for the mind. What do you think's going on in Goloka Vrindavan? They're just glorifying Krishna from, eternally. And it's always going on, ever fresh. You can imagine? Manaso Tadeva Shokana, it dries up the ocean of lamentation. What a glorification of it. On the other hand, now this verse, well, I don't think, well, maybe some of you will recognize it. Nayad vachas chitta padang hare yasho jagat pavitram pragunita karachit. This is the famous pilgrimage of crows verse from the first canto. We're in the 12th canto. Vishwanath Chakravarti pointed out that the whole Bible, this is very significant. 3 verses from the 5th chapter of the first canto, Narada's instructions to Vyasadeva, are repeated practically verbatim in the 12th canto. He says these verses are so important, they bracket the whole Bhagavatam. They give us an idea of what it's all about. So he's saying, on the other hand, those words, they may be very, very skillfully put together in a literary sense, but they're devoid of glorification of Hari. They're like a pilgrimage for crows. In other words, a garbage heap where the crows like to gather, as opposed to the swans, the hansas, the devotees, who never go there. And the next verse is practically word for word the verse that Prabhupada put in his preface. He was inspired by this verse because, English was his second language. And yet he knew that he was instructed to preach in English by Bhaktisiddhanta. That was what he taught. So he had the BTG in English for many years, and he wrote, as he journeyed to other planets. Finally, he took on the Bhagavatam, substantial book, But how could he felt worried, that it wasn't, his English wasn't that great. But then this verse inspired him. It said, Tad Bhagavasargo. Bhagavasargo is simply a creation of words, another literary work. Janata Aga Viplavo, a very important series of words. Janata Aga Viplava. Janata means to generate. Viplava means capsizing the boat. It's a word for revolution. In what? The Aga, in this sinful, misdirected civilization. Those words which are designed to bring about a revolution in the life of this misdirected civilization. That's more or less Prabhupada's translation. Yasmin prati shlokam abandavad. Even though every single verse may be miscomposed. In other words, it's not a great, the literary ornaments aren't there. It's, there's flaws in the Sanskrit, English, whatever language. Even though that may be the case, Yasmin prati shlokam abandavad namanya nandasya yashon kitaniya. The Ananta, that's the word for Krishna, the unlimited Lord. They glorifies the name, fame, qualities, pastimes of the unlimited Lord. Yashon Kitaniyak, Shunvanti Gayanti Gunanti Sarava. The sadhus, who are like the swan-like devotees, they hear it and chant, repeat, and distribute. You see? Then there's another one, Nishkarma Vishubhadavarjitam, is talking about what to speak of, activity that's materially motivated, going to the heavenly planets, all of that. That's completely useless. So he goes on there, and in the last 2 verses, he says, as far as your duties in Varnashram go, he says, what can be the ultimate result? Yashak Shriyam, Eva Parishrama. First of all, the Parishrama, great effort. Just like we've just been hearing in the morning about King Pachanabarhi. So much effort. Getting all the Brahmins, getting all the ghee, sacrificing those poor animals, and then doing it again. It goes going on for days, weeks, who knows how long, Great effort, Parishrama. Yashakshriyam. The result of all of it, if you're successful, if the Brahma is mispronounced, if you do it it's not astrologically correct, you can have the opposite effect. These material sacrifices are very dangerous. If you don't do it just right, it's disastrous. We have examples in the Bhagavad. But, Sankirtan Jagya, come on, Prabhu, join in. Oh, I don't know if you know the mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, okay, and then they mispronounce the words. Doesn't matter. Krishna is looking, Bhava, Grahi, Janardana. This is the phrase worth memorizing. Bhava means the mood, your feeling. Grahi means he grasps, he understands. Janardana, Krishna. Krishna understands your feeling, that's what he's after. He's not after a certain number of mantras and offerings like all the demigods and everything. It's not business. It's the heart. So Krishna is looking for where we're at. Otherwise, how could we sit here? Maybe you could do it, and you could do it. Well, I couldn't. So he said. So the great devotees, they hear, they chant, they accept, they distribute these words, and that's exactly what happened with Prabhupada's Bhagavatam. He brought the book. He himself was distributing, walking on Broadway in Manhattan, with his books, looking for some spiritual bookstore, which they had in those days. Maybe they still have them, selling a few books, And but because he was empowered by Krishna, he was able to attract. Come on, he meets Hayagriva, the English professor, practically the first devotee, person he made who actually became a devotee. In 1966, could help him with the editing and improve the English. So the end point of this Krishna Katastaka is that if you work in Varnashram, the best thing you're going to do is get temporary fame and wealth, and then it'll be all gone. But on the other hand, it goes back and forth. This is the 7th of the 8th verses. Avismriti, because we're back to this verse that we just read, or the two verses, 14, 15. Avismriti Shrita Pada Padmayo. Now, Avismriti, you remember I mentioned there's these two basic principles. Smartavyak tatatam Vishnu, Vismartavya najatit. Vismartavya is the same as Avismriti. Means not forgetting. Now, recently I looked at this. This is not Prabhupada's books. This was translated by Ridhyananda Maharaj and Gopi Pranandana. So I'm not as hesitant to make it, editing changes, since I'm the original editor, and nobody cares. So, but I care that it's right. So we had it wrong. We had Avismriti Shrita Pada Padmayo. That's the 7th verse. Means, and we had it as remembrance of the lotus feet of Sridhar. Sridhar is the name for Krishna, means he who always has the goddess of fortune by his side, kind of like. But it's not remembrance. It's constant remembrance. Avismriti means no forgetting. It's more powerful than remembrance, because remembrance can come and then you can lose your remembrance. But if you're never forgetting, it means you're always remembering. So constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Krishna is the result of your carefully hearing and chanting, remembering the description of his name, form, qualities of Krishna. And then the final verse, which is the fruit of the whole thing, it's kind of the theme of the whole Bhagavatam. Avismriti Krishna Padara Vindayot Chinot Yabadhani Chashangtanoti Sattvasya Shuddhim Paramatma Bhaktim Jnanam Cha Vijnana Vairagya Yuktam. There's a wonderful verse, and I read in that Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhava book, the glories of Bhakti Siddhanta. This is one of the verses he would quote a lot. There's a whole chapter on that. So anyway, what does it mean? Constant remembrance of Krishna's lotus feet. What's the result? Chinotya Badhrani. All badras, unnecessary things, blockages in your heart. This is mentioned right in the first canto. They're destroyed by that remembrance. And Shang Tanoti. Sham is not an ordinary word used, but it's in the word Shankara. It's a name for Shiva. He who causes good fortune. Sham means good fortune, welfare, everything auspicious. He brings, this remembrance brings that. Sattvasya Shuddhim, it purifies your existence. Paramatma Bhaktim evokes more and more devotion to Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, Krishna. He mentions Krishna in the first line. Characterized by jnana, real knowledge, vijnana, realized knowledge, and vairagya, detachment from everything material. The whole thing is right there. So that's what's being mentioned here. After all of this official meditation, and back to this very difficult thing, which is good, then he says, but ananya chetak satadam, if one can somehow come to the point of always remembering me, then I'm very easy to attain. And everything else, you don't have to worry about anything else. So just do those things which will help you progressively remember me. And then the verse we read today. So now you've attained Krishna. I'm easy to attain, sulabha. And here's the result. Mamapecha purna janma dukale mashashatam. This phrase, dukale mashashatam, Prabhupada would quote alone very often. This is the summary of the description of this world, of this material world. it's an abode of misery, and even the little happiness you may get is temporary. That's part of the misery. You know, I had it, then I lost it. This is why it's an ocean of lamentation. Or I wanted it, I never got it. There's more lamentation. And so if you get it, I got it, but then you lose it. So that's the ashashvatam. You see? So punarjanma naptavanti. You don't have to take birth again in this world, which is full of misery and is temporary, because you're a Mahatma. There's 3 or 4 verses in the Gita about who is a Mahatma. This is one of them. Sangsiddhim padamangata. You've attained the supreme perfection of going to the ultimate goal, Krishna's world, the Goloka Vrindavan. So that's what this verse is often quoted, perhaps most quoted of all of them in this chapter. Then there's a few others that that are coming that Prabhupada would quote. Where is it coming up? Anyway, we'll get to them. So any questions or comments on this important verse? Mamupecha punarchanma dukale mashashvatam. This is where we want to go. We want to go back to Godhead, and side benefit is no more miseries. Okay. Anything in internet land? All right. Let's go on. Next verse is also very important. 16. 16. Abrahma bhavana loka punaravartanarjuna mamapechuta kunteya punarjanma navidyate. Okay. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Purport. All kinds of yogis, karma, jnana, hatha, etc., eventually have to attain devotional perfection in bhakti yoga or Krishna consciousness before they can go to Krishna's transcendental abode and never return. Those who attain the highest material planets, the planets of the demigods, are again subjected to repeated birth and death. As persons on earth are elevated to higher planets, people on higher planets, such as Brahmaloka, Chandraloka, and Indraloka, fall down to earth. The practice of sacrifice called Panchagni Vidya, recommended in the Chandogya Upanishad, enables one to achieve Brahmaloka. But if on Brahmaloka one does not cultivate Krishna consciousness, then he must return to earth. Those who progress in Krishna consciousness on the higher planets are gradually elevated to higher and higher planets, and at the time of universal devastation are transferred to the eternal spiritual kingdom. Baladev Vidyabhushan, in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, quotes this verse. Brahmana sahate sarve samprapte patisanchare patasyante kutatmana pavishanti parampadam. When there is devastation of this material universe, Brahma and the devotees who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness are all transferred to the spiritual universe and to specific spiritual planets according to their desires. So, it's not true that everyone on Brahmaloka goes back to Godhead automatically. We learn here, and otherwise why would Krishna say, oh, even on Brahmaloka is a place of return, you see? So this material world is very vast, and there's all kinds of places that you can be put into by your activities to get some material aspiration and then have it dashed again and then take birth again, and it's been going on forever. So this verse should make us very pessimistic about wanting to stay anywhere in this world. There's nothing to be aspired for. All of this aspiration on this planet is just pathetic when we hear about the higher planets in this material world. But we know that even there, it's foolish to aspire to go to Brahmaloka, Indraloka, all these things. So learning that is a great lesson. It's a great treasure, because it cuts off your, one of the avenues in which people stay in this material world. They try and they aspire to attain some position, either on this planet or, if you know about it, some other planet. But it's a royal waste of time, it's a complete waste of time. I mean, it's worse than even just taking birth again on the earth, We have a chance to get in touch with the Hare Krishna movement. But to go to the heavenly planets and think, oh, now I've got it made. All right, let me enjoy. See the problem? It's too nice up there. And in hell, it's too horrible. You don't have a chance. This is the place. There's enough peace now. We can practice chant Hare Krishna. There's some parts of the world that are impossible. But there's enough going on in this world. You can see, the material world is a miserable place. I can see those miseries. This is why we're meant to. When you read the 11th canto, I remember when I first came to Miami, started working on the 11th canto. They'd already produced a good part of it, about 19 chapters. And there was in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna begins, when he's speaking to Uddhava, talking about this one yogi who all of his gurus were just different parts of nature. I don't know if you ever read that. He learned from the earth, he learned tolerance. From the bees, he learned to take the essence of things. From the dog, he learned faithfulness, In other words, that's how he was observant, to be very... And we can also do that, just like this COVID thing. I mean, it's big, how do I put it? Negative force in what we usually do. The kirtans, not to be able to have an open kirtan. I was thinking maybe if Vijay hasn't returned, we can do a really loud rip-roaring. He's up there. He's trying to sleep through my loud class. Sorry, Vijay, for waking you up, Prabhu. But aside from that little, we're still bound, But we should say, okay, this is an impetus for getting serious. This COVID or something worse, we got the ocean just a few blocks from here. There's faults under here. This is an earthquake zone. Is it 2011 in Fukushima? Is it so far back we forgot? 9.5 just wrecked the whole thing. We have one of those that's been decommissioned up in, where is it? Nuclear, San Onofre, yeah. So it's decommissioned, but I bet you they still got all that radioactive stuff still sitting up there. Nobody wants it, sitting up there. So suppose there's some big earthquake and a big tsunami, where's that going to flow? It may come down here at Grand Avenue. In other words, nothing is secure, plus just ordinary life. As you get older, the body is so fragile, you realize anything can break down at any time. So these are warnings. This is a lesson. But knowing the transcendental knowledge, it should be an impetus for becoming serious. And you remember that verse we had this morning, those of you who are in the class, Labdvasadulam abhidam bahusambhavante. We've attained the human form after many, many births. And like all forms, it's very temporary. But it's unique in that it can give the ultimate goal of life. Therefore, Turnam Yateta. Who remembers what that means? Turnam Yateta. Listen. Turna means don't delay, quickly. And Yateta means strive. For what? The ultimate good. Nikshayasa. This word comes in the beginning of the Gita where Arjuna surrenders. He says, Yakshayakshyan nishitam bruhitanmai. Please tell me for sure how I can achieve my ultimate good. I've been thinking according to these relative considerations of this relative, that relative. Now I want absolute good. So you instruct me. I surrender. So anyway, that's there's always a lesson, we can learn from the world, from our experiences in it, when it's informed by the Shastra. You can say, oh yes, this confirms. I can see. There's no happiness in this world. There's a temporary happiness, flickering happiness that we take for happiness, but then it's gone. And what's left is fearfulness. Death is approaching, disease, So that's why it's Dukali and Mashashvatam. And here Krishna says, and going up to a higher planet is not going to help. Even from Brahmaloka, it's places of return to this world of birth and death. So therefore, what's the conclusion? Get out. Do everything you can to get out. To come back to me. Mamupecha Punarjanma. These two verses, 15, 16, give a very stark choice. And then I wanted to mention the other verses in the Gita that describe Mahatma. In the next chapter, I think that Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantascha Drudavata Namantas Samam Bhakta Nityogapasate. This is describing the Mahatma. Mahatmana Sumam Parta Daivim Prakatam Ashrata. Krishna says there that I everything is going on in this world under my supervision. Nothing is happening by accident. Maya jakshena pakati suyate satadasanam. The fools, the rascal, the atheists, they deride me. They don't accept it. They deride me when I appear in human form. They don't understand my supreme nature. And everything they do is frustrated. Mogasha, moga karmano, moga jnana pachetasa. Their aspirations, asha. We sing every morning. We aspire to be the servants of Tulsi and to always have Radha Krishna Leela manifest to us, right? We want to be able to be in Vrindavan. We have to have asha, either material or spiritual. So for the demons, it's all material aspirations, and they're always frustrated. Mogasha, moga karma, their activities, their aspirations, their knowledge, because they've taken shelter of the bewildering potency, the external energy of Krishna. But the Mahatmas, on the other hand, that two word, remember I mentioned what the two? T-U. It's always usually the second word in a verse, never first. Mahatmanas tu, mam parta, the great Mahatmas, this is the verses describing Mahatmas. Daivim pakatim, they take shelter of by internal energy. In other words, the spiritual energy was seen by Srimati Radharani of service, rather than trying to exploit Krishna's energy, using Krishna's energy. What do they do? Bhajanjananya manaso. Again the word manasa. We had the word ananya chetak satatam. This ananya word, no other thing, just focusing on me. They worship me with undeviating mind. Bhajanjananya manaso, gyatva bhutadam abhyam. They understand I'm the source of everything. And then this verse, Prabhupada, it's exchange of letters, it's in the Science of Self-Realization, if you read it, where one professor saw the devotees chanting on a campus in LA somewhere, and he was criticizing, what kind of yoga is this? Where does Krishna speak about this? This is all this chanting. So Prabhupada's quoted, Satatam kirtiyanto mam. They're always kirtiyan, they're always chanting and singing about me. Yatantaschad vidharvata. Here's the word yati again, striving with great determination. Nama, bowing down, namasantamam bhaktya, with great devotion. Nitya yukta upasade, always linked to me in devotion. So this is where we should, that the other Mahatma. And then, 7th chapter, Bahunam Janmanamante,
Jnanavana Prabhupada.
Vasudeva, Sarvamiti,
Samatma Sudurlabha.
Mahatma. Such a Mahatma is very rare. Many, many births, you engage, and then eventually you surrender unto me, understanding that I, Vasudeva, am everything. My energy is everywhere and I'm present there. So that's another Mahatma. And Prabhupada would also quote, sadhu is basically a synonym. He would always quote this verse. What is the definition of sadhu? Not some long beard, just orange clothes, don't be fooled. Apichet suraracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhareva samandavak. The second line and the third line. He's worshipping me without deviation, he's a sadhu. Even if sometimes he does something untoward, but still Krishna says that you should consider him a sadhu if he's worshipping me with undeviation. Okay, now we're going to get a little lesson on... Oh, you have a question?
Question, yes.
Okay.
Is that okay? Quick question.
Please.
Does heavenly planet like Swargaloka, and do they have bhakti there or any little
They do have bhakti. We learned that in the purport here. He says, those who progress in Krishna consciousness on the higher planets, it's right in the purport in 16, are gradually elevated to higher and higher planets, and at the time of universe they are transferred to the eternal spiritual kingdom. So it is possible to do bhakti up there. They're all devotees after all, but the disadvantage is that it's so nice. The urgency of it isn't as much, but still those who are intelligent, they will advance. So it's going.
They're there to enjoy life. That's how they wanted to enjoy.
Yes. Or they want to be big controllers, like the demigods. They're sakama bhaktas. They're not nishkama bhaktas. You understand? They have a desire, just like Indra. He's so passionate. He's always losing it. He's being covered, right? Can you imagine? He's wanted to destroy Vrindavan because he didn't get his sacrifice. That's not bhakti. That's the demon. Of course, he's not a demon, Prabhupada says, he's a devotee. And so he finally, was chastised properly, comes back to Krishna and offers his prayers. Please, you're the great, and then they gave him Abhishek, with Surabhi, okay. All right, Indra's finally seen the right. But then when Krishna goes up there again to return Aditi's earrings, he's got, and then such a Brahma's with him, and she sees the tree, the Parijata tree. So, okay, I only want that tree. And so Krishna says, all right, I'm taking the tree. And he said, no, you can't take the tree. There's a big fight. What happened to the prayer, Again, he's covered by the mode of passion, you see? So that's Indra. So the demigods are surrounded by so much opulence and power that it easily can go to their heads. But still, they're basically devotees. They have responsible position and like that. But this is a better place, actually. If you come in touch with the devotees of Lord Chaitanya and you take his process up seriously. Because here you can very easily be very humble and dinahina, wretched, desperate, helpless, hopeless. Krishna, help me! That's a better position to be in than to have all this power of Brahma and Indra. Because it easily goes to your head, or in Brahma's case, his heads. And you forget. And Miyadi Brahma Vimohan Leela, right? He ran after his daughter, you remember? So we're better off here. We're in good shape. We just have to completely surrender. Go back to God.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do one or two more. Take 17. So now he's going describing Brahma's lifetime. Sahasra Yuga Parayantam Ahaya Brahmano Viduhu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Rata Vidojanaha. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day. And such also is the duration of his night. Now, age here means Chatur Yuga. Or we say Kalpa. No, Prabhupada said a Kalpa is a day. The duration of the material universe is limited. It is manifested in cycles of Kalpas. A Kalpa is a day of Brahma. And one day of Brahma consists of 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas or ages. Satya, Treta, Dwap, and Kali. The cycle of Satya is characterized by virtue, wisdom, and religion. There being practically no ignorance and vice, and the Yuga lasts 1,728,000 years. In the Treta Yuga, vice is introduced, and this Yuga lasts 1,296,000 years. In the Dwapara Yuga, there is an even greater decline in virtue and religion, vice increasing, and this Yuga lasts 864,000 years. And finally, Kali Yuga, the Yuga we have now been experiencing over the past 5,000 years, there is an abundance of strife, ignorance, irreligion, and vice, true virtue being practically non-existent, and this Yuga lasts 432,000 years. In Kali Yuga, vice increases to such a point that at the termination of the Yuga, the Supreme Lord himself appears as the Kalki avatar, vanquishes the demons, saves his devotees, and commences another Satya Yuga. Then the process is set rolling again. These 4 yugas, rotating 1,000 times, comprise one day of Brahma. One day means 12 hours in this language. And the same number comprises night of 12 hours. Brahma lives 100 of such years and then dies. These 100 years, by earth calculations, total 311 trillion and 40 billion earth years. By these calculations, the life of Brahma seems fantastic and interminable, but from the viewpoint of eternity, it is as brief as a lightning flash. In the causal ocean, there are innumerable Brahmas rising and disappearing like bubbles in the Atlantic. Brahma and his creation are all part of the material universe, and therefore they are in constant flux. In the material universe, not even Brahma is free from the process of birth, old age, disease, and death. Brahma, however, is directly engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord in the management of this universe. Therefore, he at once attains liberation. Elevated sannyasis are promoted to Brahma's particular planet, Brahmaloka, which is the highest planet in the material universe and which survives all the heavenly planets in the upper strata of the planetary system. But in due course, Brahma and all the inhabitants of Brahmaloka are subject to death according to the law of material nature.
So, question.
More questions? Comment?
Is there it's saying that the Brahma is not free from old age and disease. That means devatas, they also go through old age and disease.
Did anyone understand what he said?
Yes, he's
Hold
asking.
on. I'm getting it from here. What do you say?
He said that even not even Brahma's written process, but that is in virtual nations. So he was asking if the demigods also.
Yes, of course. The demigods. Well, yes. I mean, the demigods also ultimately die for sure. Sometimes it's said in the fifth canto that there's no old age, there's no disease. Not as bad as here, but somehow or other, they terminate. And if nothing else, Brahma's whole planet is destroyed at a certain point. There's partial devastations up to Brahma Loka. Every time then his night comes, then then we're all merged in for half of that daytime, which is 1,000 yugas, which is 4,320,000,000 years. So we don't want to waste any time. We may have to. We definitely don't want to see that, if possible. But it's interesting, these vast amounts of time. Well, there's 432,000 years for the Kali Yuga. I don't see it. That's one of the most inconceivable things to me, how this world can continue to progress toward destruction as rapidly as it is and last another 427,000 years. More like 427, maybe 427 days, or weeks, or months. But that's what it says. So somewhere or other, I forget which Purana it is. Brahmanda Purana, Brahma-Vaivarta Purana. Maybe. They're predicting that there's a 10,000-year hiatus within Kali Yuga because of the advent of Lord Chaitanya. We're just starting that. It's 500, a little more than 500 years into it now. So that's hopeful, and. There's so many miraculous things have already happened in the development of this movement. Who knows? Maybe a few billionaires will start chanting Hare Krishna and building temples everywhere. They've got so much money. It's possible. Hare Krishna. All right, one more. Or one or two more. Avyakta Avyakta Yaksarva Pabhavanta Haragame Ratragame Paliyante Tatraivavyakta Sangyake. At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state, and thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again. Bhutagrama Saevayam Bhutva Bhutva Paliyate Ratragame Vashakparta Pavavatya Haragame. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. Purport. The less intelligent who try to remain within this material world may be elevated to higher planets, and then again must come down to this planet Earth. During the daytime of Brahma, they can exhibit their activities on higher and lower planets within this material world. But at the coming of Brahma's night, they are all annihilated. In the day, they receive various bodies for material activities, and at night they no longer have bodies but remain compact in the body of Vishnu. Then again, they are manifest at the arrival of Brahma's day. Bhutva Bhutva Paliyate. During the day, they become manifest. At night, they are annihilated again. Ultimately, when Brahma's life is finished, they are all annihilated and remain unmanifest for millions and millions of years. And when Brahma is born again in another millennium, they are again manifest. In this way, they are captivated by the spell of the material world. But those intelligent persons who take to Krishna consciousness use the human life fully in the devotional service of the Lord, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thus they transfer themselves, even in this life, to the spiritual planet of Krishna and become eternally blissful there, not being subject to such rebirths. So, what else is there to say? The whole, this is the actual nature of this world. It's like, Prabhupada sometimes gives this analogy, right near the beach, it's very appropriate. I grew up near various beaches. I grew up on Long Island. We would go to the beach every Sunday during the summer. And I remember making numerous, sand castles and all these different things. And at the time, I was, really into it. Me and my brother, building this. Hey, come on, get the ladder up there, the whole thing. And then it's time, and then if we built it too close to the ocean, sometimes a wave would come and destroy it. But at the very least, we would be dragged away, have to go home, and then somebody walks on and it's finished. And all of the so-called material advancement of the modern civilization is just like that. Prabhupada calls it the process of breaking and building. He comes to America, he comes to New York, and there's always built, I don't know if it's been that way ever since, but during the 50s and 60s I lived there, and there were always cranes everywhere. They're building stuff. And there's also some demolition going on. They got to clear this place off, so-called breaking and then building, building and breaking. It's not qualitatively different from the sandcastles, And I wasn't there when this hurricane hit New York. What was the name of it? Hurricane Sandy. This is some years ago. And I was shocked. There was water flowing into the subways. Because New York is 20 feet above sea level right there, And everything is very tenuous. You have all of these things you build on, and you identify with, the family and the house and the money and the thing, and I got this big building, whatever. But it's all just very, atoms in the void. It can easily be destroyed. And ultimately we see these vast annihilations. Can you imagine, all the water and the fire coming? And Anantadev, everything's burning, and this is what we have to look forward to. If you want to try to make your aspirations, your asha in this world, then it's doomed. It's a fool's errand. Krishna gives twice. He gave this, given in chapter 9, this verse. What is it? Trividyamam soma paputta papa yagjayri svargatim pratayante te punyamasada sudanda lokam ashnanti divyan divideva bhogan. Divideva bhogan means the enjoyments available in the heavenly planets. So someone here aspires to that, and they drink the soma ras, they perform sacrifice, they worship me, says Krishna, indirectly, with aspiring to go to heaven, and then some few maybe make it up there. And then Tetam Bhukva Swargalokam Vishalam. On Swargaloka heaven, they enjoy godly delights for a long time. Vishala means vast. But then Chine Punye, when their pious credits are used up, just like money in the bank, your credit card, you can go on vacation, you just enjoy. And then you put it in and said, sorry, Mr. Jones, you have another card? This one was just kicked out. We can't let you in the hotel. Oh God, I have to go back to work in California? You're in Hawaii. It's just like that. So then what happens? Down, you come to this world of death. Martya lokam vishanti. So what is Krishna? His verdict is, evam chihidam anupamana katagatam kama labande. Kama labande. If you're just aspiring to enjoy sense gratification, either gross or subtle or heavenly or hellish, you just go and come. You don't make any progress. And in the interval, you can suffer like anything in hellish punishments. So really, a logical person will ask, well, is there another place? Is there another platform of enjoyment that I don't have to be destroyed repeatedly? Bhutva paliyate? And Prabhupada said, yes. No materialist can answer yes. They can all some other variety of material enjoyment, which we see is silly. Prabhupada says yes, in the spiritual world, back home, back to Godhead. It doesn't end. Krishna's talking about it throughout this book, Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma me divyam. If you just understand my pastimes, my birth, activities, then you don't have to come back. You come to me. And God doesn't have to go through these things. He's always enjoying there. We can rejoin him in his pleasure dance eternally. So that's what's being described here, the coming and going in the material world. And it doesn't matter how high you rise. Here it is, the one that put us to Smata Bhava on you. All right, so we've come to the end of today's session. That was 19. And tomorrow we'll do 20. So we have 1 minute left. I'll give you a little poem. Something sweet. Now, it's a good lesson. Aho aho bir nakale viduyate sudha sudhara mododam pade pade. Dine dine chandana chandra shitalam yasho yasho ratana yasya. This is from Pajabali. I forget the author, but it was one of Rupa Goswami's favorite verses. That's why it's in the Pajabali. It says, because at every step they drink a flood of wondrous nectar sweet whose cooling power, sandal paste enhanced with camphor, can't defeat. They feel as if the raging blaze of Kali's days had ne'er begun. How blessed are they who fill their days with praise of Shri Yashoda's son. And this is exactly what Prabhupada did. All these books and all his, it was just glorifying Krishna constantly. And he was completely fearless and happy. So we can aspire to do that too. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.